Good evening, my students. Welcome to Modern India. Today, I'm going to talk about the founding fathers of independent India. Okay, so just like America has founding fathers, George Washington, John Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, and some not good fallen ones like Aaron Burr, like flawed, right? Aaron Burr, the one who shot and killed Alexander Hamilton, and uh, and traders like Benedict Arnold, right? So it's a characters we have in India, characters in this story. What I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk about those characters and who they are and what did they do and what are their characters, what is their story. So some of the characters I'll be talking about it in more in length, some in short bits, and so that you could understand moving forward how India moved towards independence. Okay, let's start with Mahatma Gandhi. Yes. Well, you go to India and you look at any currency, every currency has Mahatma Gandhi on it. Here, if you look at it, there's different presidents and non-presidents like Hamilton and others are in currency. India, everything is Gandhi, father of the nation. So you watching the movie Gandhi Attenborough, you would have had an idea. Now I'm going to tell you little bit more things which are not discussed in the movie, like his intellectual awareness, his intellectual grounding, where he got it to for this movement he created in India. Let's start with his story from birth, right? Gandhi was not born into a higher caste. Okay, he was not a Brahmin or he's not a Kshatriya. He's a Vaishya. Okay, so he is like in the middle of the rung. Remember the Brahma's head, the Brahmins, right? And the biceps and other things, the Kshatriyas, and from the thighs, the Vaishyas. Gandhi is from there, and the Sudras from the feet of the Brahma, and the untouchables don't belong in these four categories. They're out, the fifth bottom of the totem pole. So Gandhi was in the middle, but his father was political. His father was in charge of the small region where Gandhi was born. So Gandhi come from a background and that give him a drive, but he wasn't eating meat. In his caste, he can't eat meat. Gujarat is the state where most of them still don't eat meat. No cow, illegal to butcher cows. And the current prime minister of India comes from that state. So Gandhi, while growing up with his friends, one of his friends said like, well, you should eat meat. Look at the Mughals who ruled us. Look at the British who rule us now. They all eat meat and that's why they are stronger than us. So Gandhi ate some goat meat, but in the dreams in the night, he felt like the goat is screaming from his stomach and never touched meat again. But at his young age, he got married. As a teenager, he got married and then he even bore a child. If you read his autobiography, he talks about the pain of being involved in sexually with his wife while his father is having his last breath. And he has this, how do I say it? By the age of 37, he promised that he will not have sex, and chastity was followed for the rest of his life. And Gandhi used those resources of sexual drive to channel for the cause of independence. Okay, but at that time he wasn't. I'm talking about a young age. He wasn't at 37 years later. So then his family decided to send him to study abroad in England. So when Gandhi went to England, his mother asked for two promises. One is like not to drink alcohol and not to eat meat. Gandhi went there. He was styling himself like a Westerner. He would wear silk hats, suits, tailor-made suits, and he learned violin classes. He will date British women. He will conceal that he is a married man, and he will date women. One time when he got into a relationship which he wanted to get out, he revealed that he was married and he got out of the relationship. And later, Gandhi, and he was also a part of a vegetarian club, And he tried to be as hard as possible to imitate being an educated Englishman, a lawyer. Okay, so when he finished his education in England and came back to India, he couldn't even stand and argue in a courtroom. One of the cases, he felt so jittery that his legs were shaky. He just ran out when the judge called his name. He was the lawyer, but he got a great opportunity to be a lawyer through a wealthy Indian in South Africa. So he went to South Africa. That's where Gandhi become the Gandhi the world knows now, right? They everywhere, even if you go to Union Square in New York, you have a statue of Gandhi. You don't see any Indian having so many statues in America or anywhere in the world. He's known around the world. They sell computers, Apple, using Gandhi, right? That kind of world's icon he become. Now, we're going to talk about him a little more than other leaders, okay? So Gandhi's journey in South Africa, the pivotal moment is, if you see the movie, you will see that when he was in the train in the first class with the ticket, he was thrown out in South Africa because he has a different color skin. And despite having bought the ticket, he will be thrown out because he has to move back to third class. And he would say, I won't move out to third class. I have a first class ticket, but they're not having it. They'll be thrown out, and he is there in the station. That happened for him triggered him to consider what is going on is wrong. Okay, one of his friends recommended a book, so I'm going to talk about his intellectual foundations, which movies doesn't show. Hollywood does great job visually, but not his intellectual growth inside. So I want to talk about 3 books which affected him. The first one author is John Ruskin, British author. Ruskin, you know how to spell John. Ruskin. I'm going to write it and show it to you. Ruskin. And he wrote the book called Unto, one word, Unto the Last. Unto the Last. And he's an architect, but Gandhi learned simplicity from him, and decided to have a simple life. This is very unique. This man, when he takes an oath to do something, and when he preaches something, he does it. It's not like many other leaders in the world, like Lenin or Stalin, who talks about communism, but they live in abundance and the people don't. But Gandhi, when he takes something, he follows it to the core. That's the iron will of the man is incredible. Okay. The second important book is Civil Disobedience. Civil Disobedience by, guess who? An American, Henry David Thoreau, from the 19th century. Civil Disobedience. It's still taught in high schools. And the story of Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience is, this is a 19th century guy. Thoreau died way before Gandhi was even born. Gandhi, 1869, right? Thoreau did not want America to fight the war against Mexicans to take the Mexicans' land. That is a Texas war. Texas was the land took from Mexico, right? And he didn't want to fight, America to fight. Especially he didn't want to pay the tax. That money could be used by the government, American federal government, to fight the war against the Mexicans. So he thought it's an unfair war, and he didn't want to pay the tax, so he was thrown in jail. So he was resisting civil disobedience, right? He was thrown in jail for just a night, and his aunt paid the money, little tax, and he got out. But he wrote a book about it. It's a single individual act of civil disobedience. But Gandhi took that idea and created a larger movement of people to do civil disobedience against the government if he and the group doesn't approve of what they do. Here's an important thing you have to understand. For Gandhi, politics and morality go together. For the British, it doesn't. Politics have no place for morality, right? It's amoral. Amoral means it's not immoral, amoral, in the middle, right? So for Gandhi, civil disobedience, unto the last. And another book is by a Russian author, Leo Tolstoy, right? Leo Tolstoy wrote a book called about the kingdom of God is within you. It's about God. So Gandhi brought religion, spirituality into politics. Okay, so many of the things he does, his behaviors, are very enrooted in religion, especially in Hinduism. And so one of the things he does is fasting. You saw probably in the movie and heard about Gandhi doing fasting. And fasting is the self-suffering atonement for things to change. Like if there's a sectarian violence between Muslims and Hindus, he will starve himself. And from a Hindu religious perspective of starvation. And actually, Islam has it, right? For Ramadan, people fast. And even in Christianity, Lent time, you give up something. So fasting is part of many religions, but he completely fasts to death kind of things. There are two types he does. One is to death. Either that stops, otherwise I will starve to death. The second is he will have a set date, and up till that he will starve himself. Okay. The next important book for Gandhi, probably the most important book for him, is Bhagavad Gita. Gita, and you could spell Gita as Gita is the last name, Bhagavad Gita. I talked about Bhagavad Gita when I taught Hinduism, right, in the beginning of the semester. And Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata, if you remember. And there Gandhi learned to not to be driven towards wealth, because he felt that wealth or money is to gloat over another human being. It's to show power over others. And he doesn't want to be anything like that. Is very egalitarian. He is widely read. Have you heard of Harry Truman saying, all readers are not leaders, but all leaders are readers? Gandhi is a phenomenal reader. He reads anytime he goes to jail. He carries books with him. In fact, John Ruskin books again and again. He will read unto the last. And some of the books he could discuss Voltaire, the French philosopher, to Christianity, Bible. Even the idea of Jesus preaching on the Mount Sermon, he takes that is to not use force, because when you don't use force and when you take the beating of another person, it creates a change in another person. So like Jesus talks about, if you're slapped, slow the other cheek. And here's an important thing. Many people have a misunderstanding of nonviolence. Nonviolence they think is passive. Actually, it's active. In fact, they would say, Gandhians, it's the summit of bravery. It's not cowardice. Oh, I'm not going to do anything. You could beat me. No, it's a summit of bravery to go and march into something which you believe strongly. And even when beaten or threatened with violence, you do not budge back. You will take that blow, but you will not react to that. It's incredible. That is not just incredible of him to do that, but able to make so many of his followers able to do that. I mean, imagine you tell your friends, hey, this guy beat me up. Let's go and beat him up. Well, maybe a couple of your friends will join. Okay, my friend got beaten. I will come and beat in a bar fight and things you've seen drunk. But how about you telling your friends, this guy will hit us, but we're going to take it and stand there and show our civil resistance. Your friends will think, I'm not signing up for this, right? But he made a nation do it. And his training ground is in South Africa. South Africa was his training ground. He used this non-violent, non-cooperative method. So what did he do? This is not a time of apartheid, because in the early 20th century, when Gandhi was in South Africa, apartheid, which is the division of blacks and whites, which Mandela fought for in South Africa later, because he took some of Gandhi's ideas. That didn't happen at the time. Gandhi's movement was against, because Indians living in South Africa have to carry an identity card to show government identity that they are Indian and they're second-class citizens, whereas the whites and others don't need to carry. So Gandhi burned those identity cards. And even when the police beat him, he just burned it. He did again and again and again. And it's it's humongous strength, and he believed that it's politics standing up for morality. Politics goes with morality, and also religion, bringing religion together. So he did this very successfully, the protests against the British in South Africa. And then in 1914, he came back to India to take this new idea, a political movement, to the British in his home ground. And when he came to India, you have to understand, India had this gentleman's club. It was started as a gentleman's club called Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress. This was started by a British. These guys have clubs usually. And many of these Indian National Congress members, when Gandhi was 16 years old, this was started, right? 1885. And some of the members were moderates. Moderates means they're not talking about full freedom from British rule. They didn't have that idea. Even just 60 years before, right, of independence, it was not about like full independence from Great Britain, but having some autonomy, and not Purna Swaraj. Purna Swaraj means full independence. Swaraj. That came later. Purna Swaraj was not the idea. That came later. So Gandhi, when he went back to India, he joined the Indian National Congress, which has been there for a while. So in 1914, Gandhi even supported Indians fighting along with the British in the World War I. Remember, the Great Britain fought in World War I against Germany, right? Against Germany. So in World War II. And so Gandhi was supportive, and 2.5 million Indian men took arms to fight for the British in World War. What does India have to do with German aggression or anything? Nothing. Just they did it for India. And money, so much money, millions of pounds money was sent from India, Indian money, for British war effort. Yeah. So Gandhi came to India, and he did not do like other Indian National Congress members. These are educated gentlemen, right? And they just wore suits and ties and lived in palatial homes with servants. And these are the higher totem pole of Indian society, these guys, and Western educated. And Gandhi did not do that. You know what he did? He wore clothes like the poor men of India. So he wanted to be one among them. He doesn't want to be better than them. And so he wore those clothes, and he traveled India, not in first class trains, third class of the Indian trains, so that he could understand Indian plight and the sufferings of the poor people. And he wanted to be the representative of them. See, so he became a national figure in India through a struggle for the rights of farmers of the indigo plant. And when he won the struggle for that particular one, he became very famous among farmers, and they called him Mahatma. Mahatma means, Mahatma Gandhi, they say, Mahatma. Mahatma means great soul, the great soul. So Gandhi's struggle in India started with the lowly people. What was his goal? What was he taking to the people? His goals were very, very focused on to stop the violence between Hindus and Muslims. He wants the unity of Hindus and Muslims. And he doesn't want discrimination of the untouchables. See, the untouchability has been there for thousands of years in India, right? And Gandhi even created a name for the Dalits. Dalits are the untouchables. He called them Harijans. Harijans. H-A-R-I-J. Harijans. Harijans means children of God. Children of God. He will even go and live in the Harijans neighborhoods and say that I'm one among them. and they are not different. They shouldn't be treated different, and very unique. World War One was over, but this India's movement of Indian National Congress, especially Gandhi's adoption of British ideas. See, these guys are British educated, so they observe the Western ideas of equality and freedom. So these universal human rights observed by Gandhi, and he used it against the British, and the British were worried. Some scholars who write about the Amritsar massacre, which I'm going to talk about, Jallianwala Bagh. Amritsar is spelled as, these are names which might be a little hard for Amritsar Western educated people, because there's a lot of our Indian names. Amritsar massacre, Jallianwala Bagh. You don't need to write it Jallianwala Bagh. If you type Amritsar massacre, it'll show you. Jallianwala Bagh was General Dyer, D-Y-E-R. The British General Dyer came with the military force, and there was only one way in, one way out in an auditorium, not an auditorium, like a playground. This was people gathered there and speaking, and he came in and closed that one way in and out and asked his men to take the rifles, without any warning, started shooting and killing. And many of them, and he was proud that he didn't waste bullets. So many bullets were accurately used to kill people, he said. That was a massacre. That massacre actually was the movement that was the action that changed the movement for Purna Swaraj. India needs full struggle. The British cannot rule us. They don't have the right. Their rule is heinous crime, right? And it completely changed. And Gandhi's struggle, when we talk about Gandhi's struggle, you have to understand his philosophy of ahimsa. Write it down, ahimsa. Ahimsa, A-H-I-M-S-A. A-H-I-M-S-A. Ahimsa means, this is from Jainism, right? In India's old religions, remember Jainism, I talked about, they will cover their mouth with masks so that they don't even breathe any insects, so that they don't kill the insects. They're all about non-violence. And even when they're walking, practicing, Jains will clean the land because not to step on any insects and kill them. And ahimsa, he wants to use non-violence as a means. And satyagraha, that I won't spell it. Satyagraha. Satyagraha. Satyagraha means satya. The first half of the word means truth. Graha means roots. Holding to the truth. That is roots, holding to the truth. Satyagraha. So Gandhi's struggle is called Satyagraha against the British. That is, India must be ruled by Indians and the British should get out of here. Now, Gandhi's struggle made the British very worried, I mean, to say the least, because his struggles, if you see the movie, you would see Salt March, one of them, the basic essential element of an Indian poor people is the salt. And the British were making the salt and didn't allow any Indians to make the salt and were taxing it. So Gandhi, in order to show the consolidation of India against one thing, took that issue and went and did the Satyagraha, the Salt March. And he was thrown in jail many times. But he would come out and he would again start his movement. So when World War II came, now you might ask, because I'm talking about World War II, World War I, why would he agree to send troops from Indian princely states and give money and support British? Because he believed the British said, if you help us out, we will have more concessions for Indian way to rule. Not full freedom, but at least we will give local elections, Indians get elected and all this. But for World War II, Gandhi was not going along because of his goal was full independence, okay? And I'll come to independence. So I wanted to talk about Gandhi's trip to England. Okay, he went to meet the king, and when he went to meet the king, he was, never fully clothed. He wears his small cloth in the bottom, and he has some cloth to cotton covering him. And he was not interested in wearing Western clothes. One of the reasons is many of the cotton and other materials taken from India were manufactured into clothing in the British cities and brought back to India for much higher prices. He felt he's being exploited. So that's why if you see the movie, he also asked to burn the British clothes, and they all burned it in a pyre, right? So Gandhi went to meet the king in just simple clothes. When he came out after the meeting with the king, British king, an importer asked him, "Do you think you're dressed enough to meet the king?" And Gandhi said, "Well, he's dressed more than enough for both of us." And Gandhi went around the country and met all the leaders, important ones. So many of the British liked Gandhi, and except there's one person, I'm going to talk about him soon. His name is Churchill, Winston Churchill, the conservative prime minister during the time of World War II, did not like Gandhi, and he called him a naked fakir, Fakir, naked fakir. And Churchill even took, in 1943, when the World War II was going on, grains from Bengal. There's whole books written on it. Grains from Bengal to have enough supply, adequate supply for his soldiers and his people. It's not that they were starving, but he took that from India, and it created millions of death due to famine in Bengal. And modern scholars like Amartya Sen, Nobel Prize winning economist who study famines, have showed how when countries are ruled democratically, famines don't happen. When they're ruled authoritatively, famines happen in countries, and it exacerbates the condition. Anyway, so it's not because of the crop failure, because of the distribution of the resources and how government in power. Similar case with the Irish famine in the 19th century. Anyway, so now Gandhi's, let me end Gandhi's, but we'll come to the independence struggle in the next lecture, so that after Gandhi's founding father, we go to other founding fathers. Gandhi's struggle was ended. He lived to see India's independence, right? He lived in an ashram and he struggled. And if you see, he ate just goat milk and vegetables. When I was reading Gandhi's grandson's book, which just came out recently, and he talked about how when he was a child, the grandson, now he's old man, the grandson, but when he was young, when he goes to meet Gandhi in the ashram, and why is this food so crappy? It doesn't taste well. And then, ask grandpa. And then he will go and talk to grandpa. And grandpa is like, well, you could try mine. And then he tried grandpa's food, which was even worse for the little kid. No sweet, no salt, nothing. He just had goat milk with vegetables. What are the reasons? He tried the simple foods where to suppress his sexual urges, he was experimenting constantly. And he said to his grandson in the book that he doesn't live to eat, but he eats so that he could live. Very simple. And the relationships of his sons, like, even at a young age, he had a son, Harilal, Harilal, Harilal. He did not have good relationship with his old son. In fact, the only good relationship he had as a father was with his youngest son, because many of them felt that Gandhi just went on to do nation's business and forsaken the family, because he didn't practice as a lawyer. He could have made money, anything. He was completely focused on getting India's independence and the causes for the country, and living like a pauper, and he even refused the Western education he got for his sons. So many of his sons didn't approve of what he did to them. Anyway, so Gandhi's end came few months, August 1947, India got its independence, right? January 48th, Gandhi was shot and killed. Shot and killed by an assassin whose name is Godse. Nathuram Godse. Godse is the last name. Godse is a Hindu fanatic. And you're like, what? Isn't it Gandhi Hindu? Why would he kill? Well, the Hindu fanatic, Godse, if you could talk about Godse for a little while, but the short is, he never succeeded in anything. 6 different ventures he tried until he became a fanatic and of this. He raised the flag, which has the symbol of the swastika. And why swastika? The symbol which the Nazis held. It's actually the symbol from Aryans who came and joined the India. Remember, 2,000 years ago, Aryans came in. So they had that symbol, the swastika symbol. That symbol was used by Godse and his group of people to raise the flag and talk about Hindu fascism. And they hated Gandhi because of his non-violent methods that Godse and others thought is very cowardly. And another thing they thought Gandhi was giving concessions to the Muslims. India should be one fully Muslim, Hindu-dominated country. And Godse wanted to kill Gandhi and did, shot and killed Gandhi. So that's how the biggest India's founding father goes from the scene at the age of about 78. And now let's talk about Nehru. Nehru, Nehru. Nehru, Nehru. I would like you to Google the names I'm going to talk about, because if you see the images, you will get a better idea. It'll stick in your mind rather than just me talking blah, 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 blah. Nehru. And Nehru was the first Indian prime minister. Remember, Nehru's father was even part of Indian National Congress, even when Gandhi was like 16, when Indian National Congress was found. Nehru comes from a very rich Brahmin class, Kashmiris are the northern part of India, Aryan mix and more light color, Brahmin. His father was educated. He sent Nehru for Western education, British educated. And Nehru, if you look at, had a strong relationship with Gandhi, because Gandhi and Nehru are like, Gandhi completely embraced Nehru, and Nehru felt like Gandhi is his father and mentor and political mentor, and he followed Gandhi blindly. And he has been to jail for the struggle for independence for 9 years. He was in jail, almost 10 years. And he is a man who was a great orator, and he was beyond caste and religion, very secular. Secular means non-religious. The liberal idea, the Western liberal idea, Nehru was an embodiment of it. And Nehru want India to have a secular state, unlike Pakistan, which will later become a Muslim state. But Nehru wants Muslims, Jewish, Hindus, all kinds of Christians, all kinds of people live in harmony. And Nehru was that character, an important figure, which later lectures will talk about the changes and impacts he will have on India. So Nehru is the first prime minister, and these are the information you need to know now. Let's talk about Nehru's right-hand man. Gandhi's right-hand man is Nehru. Nehru's right-hand man is Patel, Vallabhbhai Patel. Patel is P-A-T-E-L. Yes, some of you might think, oh, I know a lot of Patels in New Jersey and others, a lot of Indian communities. Yes, they are all representation, a group of people named from Gujarat. Patel is just like Gandhi from this one state, Gujarat. And Patels are very good in business in general. And it's a stereotype, positive stereotype, but still a stereotype in America and around the world. Vallabhbhai Patel was a great negotiator. He was a very practical man. Let me give you a little anecdote to understand him. Patel was as a lawyer working in a court. He got his telegram in the middle of an argument, It said that his wife passed away, and he looked at it, he folded that, put it in his pocket, continued with his argument. He doesn't believe in showing emotions. Yes, he was like the Iron Man. Iron Man. It helped. These negotiation skills will come in handy to unite India. This is a man who united India. That means, there are 565 princely states in India, right? When the British was leaving India, India had so many states. You had to make them all into one country. And Patel was the man who did that. And how he did that, we'll talk about that in a later lecture. And if you go to India now, they're building the largest statue in the world. And the statue is Patel's statue. It's like 2 times the size of Statue of Liberty in New York. And Patel's statue is built by the current prime minister. The Conservative Party in power is called Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP. They're driven to build this huge statue of Vallabhbhai Patel. The opposition party is Congress, which is the Indian National Congress, which struggled to get the freedom, more liberal party. They say, why don't you have the Gandhi statue or something, because he's the father of the nation. But they put Vallabhbhai Patel's statue. Patel, I told you, he doesn't show emotions. Even when sectarian violence happens between Hindus and Muslims, when Nehru is completely shocked and sits there, Patel is like, well, it's expected to happen. He is that kind of man, Patel. We'll talk about Patel and his job doing great things to bring India together. The next one I want to talk about, and a very important character, is Jinnah, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Because without Jinnah, there's no Pakistan. And who is this man? Jinnah, Jinnah. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, few generations before he was born, he was not a Muslim. They converted to Islam. And then Jinnah was also Western educated. Jinnah likes to wear quite the opposite of Gandhi in many ways. How? He likes to wear nice clothes, silk ties. He hated the poor masses. I'm quoting an American historian, right? And Jinnah travels only in first class, and unlike Gandhi in the third class. And Jinnah was part of the Indian National Congress, and he was upset at the Gandhi's and Nehru's rise to prominence in the country, and he felt he's been marginalized in Indian National Congress. So he joined also as the leader of a Muslim League, which is an organization started even before Jinnah went and joined, 8 years before. And he went and joined, and he became the president of that organization, and he became the single most powerful voice of the Muslims in India, in the United India. Okay, so Jinnah is, even though is a Muslim by name and designation, but he was not a practicing Muslim. Scholars write that he hardly goes to mosque, prayer, and he drinks alcohol, which is haram for Muslims. They don't drink alcohol. And he married a woman who was 17 when he was in his 30s, and she would bring a ham sandwich even during an election to give it to Jinnah. But Muhammad Ali Jinnah was cold. That's what many of the historians refer him to. He's cold, and he didn't have much friends. He called Gandhi a cunning fox, right? It sounds like a projection to me. And he called Nehru as like he should have been an English professor rather than a politician. And Jinnah weighed about 120 pounds, very skinny, and he was just running on not food, alcohol, and on cigarettes. So he had TB, tuberculosis. So his days were numbered, and his time is coming up, and he knows that. But he wanted to have a prominent role in history. And so he wanted to create a separate state for Muslims, because the argument given was that Muslims cannot be saved under Hindu-dominated India after the British leave us. So he wanted to create a separate country for Muslims, and a Indian student in Cambridge coined the term Pakistan. Country's name. How? Look at this. Pakistan P is from Punjab. It's the region of India. Okay, Punjab. And Afghanistan. So it's going to be surrounded by that, the region surrounding that, Afghanistan. Okay. K is Kashmir, which is the region, very, very fought, highly controversial and politically powder keg region of India up till now. From then is Kashmir. And so P-A-K, Afghanistan, K for Kashmir. And Stan is Baluchistan, which means one of the provinces name of Pakistan. There's 4 provinces. One of them is Baluchistan, Stan. So Pakistan was created, and the name was. So Jinnah wanted to have a separate country, but Gandhi doesn't. Gandhi said, over my dead body, I do not want Muslims and Hindus separated. And he said, one woman asked, why wouldn't you let them separate? If there are 2 brothers want to go in a different way, let them go. And he said, it's not 2 brothers. They are in the womb. But you don't cut a womb for a woman. This is one country. And Gandhi did not. And Nehru was so frustrated by Jinnah that he felt, if Jinnah wants to go away with his land, let him go away. I can't handle it anymore. That's what Gandhi thought about Jinnah. In 1941, it was only like a couple of hundred people, Muslim League, but it grew in size, in stature, to hundreds of thousands. And it became a big movement and a bargaining power to ask for a separate state. And we will talk about partition, which is in the lecture. We're going to talk about what happened, and the documentary of partition will also support your understanding of what happened. It is the biggest human man-made tragedy in the history of the world. So before I further continue, I wanted to talk about another man, which is not Jinnah. We talked about Gandhi, Nehru, Jinnah. Ambedkar. B-R. R for Rochester, B for Bear. Ambedkar is an untouchable, born as an untouchable caste, a Dalit. But his father was part of the British, like a Sipahi. He was working. So he saved money, put Ambedkar through school. Ambedkar was fortunate enough to come to America and go to Columbia University, get 2 masters. He got his undergraduate degree in Bombay, and then Bombay University, which is India's biggest city, populated. He came to New York City, got 2 masters in 3 years, political science and economics, got a doctorate in economics, writing about the cost of caste system. And then he didn't stop there. He went to England, and in London School of Economics, he got another doctorate and a law degree. He got like multiple degrees, like 4 doctorates. And he went to India. And when he went to India, he became a professor. Listen to this. This is a man so highly educated. And one of the sad things that the other professors in that university, in his department, will not allow him to drink from a water fountain, which is in the faculty lounge, because he's an untouchable. And so he quit. He quit his job as a professor and went on to get involved in politics. And he didn't agree with Gandhi's tactics of living in Gandhi living among the untouchables will make this issue go away. He didn't think. He felt that legally things should be done so that the untouchables have their rights. For example, he wanted untouchables to have allocated seats for election, just like the Muslims had. Muslims had allocated seats where Muslims ran, only Muslim candidates could run. And Ambedkar said allocated seats for untouchables, and untouchables should be allowed to vote for that. And Gandhi said, no, if everybody starts having that allocation like that, the country will have like divided type of government. I do not want that. And Gandhi would go on fasting, and Ambedkar would feel like it's moral manipulation. It's like he's coercing Gandhi, using his method of fasting as a manipulation technique. So Ambedkar, when was appointed by later after India's independence, was appointed as the chairman to write the Indian Constitution. Remember, he has so many degrees, including law and PhD, doctorate in law. He wrote the Indian. He led the main person in the Indian Constitution. By the way, Indian Constitution is the hardest, I could say, because it compared so many constitutions around the world, including the United States, and has so many articles. The US has 7. I think the Indian Constitution is like 362 articles. And Ambedkar was responsible for it. By the end of his life, which is not long after India's independence, he converted to Buddhism and died because he didn't want the treatment as an untouchable. And being a Hindu is the way the untouchable will be always an untouchable. So he converted, rather than converting to Islam, he felt he should convert to Buddhism. That's Ambedkar. Welcome to Ambedkar. The next one is Bose, B-O-S-E. Subash Chandra Bose. Bose like the headphones? Yes. That dude actually is from India, and he went to MIT. I'm talking about the Bose headphones dude, and created this amazing headphones. I use it, many of you. Same spelling, Bose. Subash Chandra Bose. This man comes from Bengal region, and quite the opposite of Gandhi in terms of the techniques he used to fight against the British. He used armed insurrection against the British. He started in an Indian army, and he was the commander-in-chief. And during even World War II, remember India got its independence in 1947. So World War II was happening from 41 to 45. He was leading these armed forces, fighting against the British. He was working with Hitler, right? Hitler and the Japanese forces, because remember Hitler's Nazi Germany and Japanese were fighting against Great Britain. So enemy's enemy is my friend. So Subhash Chandra Bose was actually traveling in German submarine, a rendezvous with Japanese forces around Africa. This man is like a mythological figure. Even now, people like him a lot in India, but his methods were using armed violence. It's not that he was the first person to use armed resistance against the British, because even in the 19th century, there was armed resistance, right? There was people who were throwing bombs, homemade bombs at the British and killing the leaders, but it never worked as much as the Gandhi's movement. So Subhash Chandra Bose army surrendered after Japanese collapse. Remember, the Japanese and the Nazi Germany were defeated. And so when his overweight flight was flying near Taiwan, it disappeared. Nobody even got his body. And so that was the end of Subhash Chandra Bose. But I'm saying this character, founding father, a different way of struggle than Gandhi's against the British. The next one, I want to talk about two characters, and these are not two founding fathers, but the guys who played a main role. And one is Churchill, and another one is Mountbatten. And Churchill, they both are British. Churchill was one of my personal heroes for standing against Hitler and bringing people together, and use the power of English language in great oratorical capacity to inspire people and stand against the struggle. But he's also a racist, yeah, and especially against Gandhi and Indians. And when Indians died in large number in the famine, when he took the grains away, he even said, like, well, it's not my problem, it's their problem of breeding like animals and multiplying so much. And he was having a dinner conversation with Mountbatten, who was young. And this was World War II was going on. The British Prime Minister is Churchill, and he belongs to a conservative party. And he did not want India to ever have freedom from Great Britain, by the way, because he felt the British Empire should go on. Yes. And he was having the food with Mountbatten, young British Prime Minister, old in his 60s, Mountbatten in his 40s, and there was another newspaper man. And Churchill said, there's a good news. The Nazis are turning towards Russia. Remember? The Nazis turned towards Russia to attack Russia. And Churchill said, from my intelligence report, they might get through in a month with the Russians. They were done with the Russians. And American intelligence says it might take 2 months. Maybe the Russians can withstand 2 months. Mountbatten said, I disagree with your intelligence and American staff and yours, Mr. Prime Minister. And Churchill is like, yeah, tell me why. They're going to put up a fight. Hitler's biggest mistake is this. And Mountbatten was right. The Nazis' first defeat happened in World War II with the Russians. They did put up a fight because they felt their home is invaded, right? So why did I tell the story? Mountbatten, even though young, he was a war hero. He was very good looking, and he was appointed as the last viceroy. After the World War II was over, British people kicked out Churchill and replaced the government with the Labour Party. Churchill is Conservative Party, and they replaced with Attlee, A-T-L-E-E, Labour Party leader as Prime Minister. Why? Because the country is completely destroyed. The war has created havoc in the society. People need to be rebuilt and taken care. Labour Party is like the Democratic Party, the Liberal Party. They will take care. So Churchill was kicked out. And so the Labour Party was more lenient and want to give India its independence. And so they sent Mountbatten. And Mountbatten wanted to get Churchill in his favor to give independence, even though Churchill felt like I could prolong this independence to India because we still have Conservative Party members in the House of Lords, which is the higher house, like the US Senate, the higher house in the UK. And I could prolong this. But Mountbatten said, we could, Mr. Churchill, I could talk India's independence along with the dominion status for a few years. So India was under the dominion so it won't be a fully free republic country until 1950, even though it got its freedom in 1947. Not until January 26, 1950, for 3 years, almost 3 years, it didn't have its own autonomy completely, and it was pledging, and the leaders were pledging the allegiance, and so it was a dominion status. Pakistan, from 1947 all the way to 1956, it was in a dominion status. And Churchill is like, okay, in that case, I will consider giving them a freedom. Anyway, Mountbatten, when he came to India, he came with his wife. Scholars say she's more she had a better intellect than Mountbatten. And if you see the documentary, you will see them both in their prime age, and he's like the movie star looks of, like tall and with all the medals, and she is a very smart lady. There's an anecdote I would like to say which will make you think about her in a better light. And Mountbatten likes to work in an air-conditioned room. And then there was Gandhi one day came to see Mountbatten, and Gandhi wears scanty clothes. He has very little clothes on him, and he felt shivering. He's old. Felt in his 70s, so he's freezing. And Mountbatten's wife saw that. Lady Mountbatten ran and stopped the air condition. She said, "Oh my God, I thought I'm going to kill this old man with pneumonia." And still the shivering didn't stop after stopping the air condition. So she has to open the windows. India is a warm, hot place, which is hard for Mountbatten, but Gandhi's dress and life, he is fine. The shivering didn't stop even after opening the window. So Mountbatten rushed in to get a sweater worn by Lord Mountbatten and royal emblem and things, gave it to Gandhi, and Gandhi was holding it. She gave him a hot tea, and then he felt better. So this lady Mountbatten and both Mountbatten were very gracious. And for example, Mountbatten will go with his daughter without any security into the towns, and people coming and talking to them. He will go to, in 200 years of British history, no viceroy. Mountbatten is the last viceroy, which is like the top dog in the British Empire in India. Okay, the Queen is the topmost dog, but the Queen, Caesarean of India. He would go to an ordinary person's home, and Nehru even said, "Thank God, finally we have a viceroy who's like a human rather than like a stiff stick figure, who all these other guys, British rulers, and will not mingle. They have like hundreds of Indians working in their homes." And Lady Mountbatten will even also make vegetarian Indian food to serve. So they were very colorful, and let's talk about in the next lecture. It's about an hour now. Let's talk about in the next lecture of how partition happened, what created the partition, and the consequences of partition, and we'll go from there. Good luck.